at least every 3 months or so in my life, I can be feeling great for a period of time, and then this darkness will creep up on me and it becomes so heavy and I'm feeling a lot of pain, and I grab at everything that's externally happening in my own personal world, whether it's around where I live or relationships or money or health or whatever domain in life. And I try and justify that this is the reason I'm feeling dark because, oh, that's not working out, or this is fucked, or whatever it may be. And I'm just in this cesspool of my own darkness. And it gets worse and worse and worse until it hits this point. And when it hits, it's so painful because at some point during whatever day it is, I will just be like, this is fucked. I don't want to be on this planet any longer. It is way, way, way too painful to be a human. And I pretty much spend the whole day fantasizing about how I can get off this ship, right? Get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And it's like an empath overload. And definitely I notice that external information, what's going on in the world, can really drive that experience. And then I get really pissed off when people are like, oh, positive think or affirmations. And it's like, can you not feel what's collectively happening? Like, this is not something that you can brush off. It's actually very painful and horrific to be a human in these times, as equally as it is magical and beautiful.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's both. It always is.
And it reminds me of that image, that George talks about. It's like the line, and it's that sine wave. He's like, you can't have this experience without having the exact opposite. That's exactly how this universe is made up. So we can't have the magical and the amazing and the beautiful without having the fucking really dark shit as well. Absolutely. It's I love that. It's like the sine wave or whatever it is, where it's just like going back and forth and back and forth. And the nature of the universe is its polarizing expressions. So it's like the whole like, oh, just add lightness, like fucking add. It's like this dunk, 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 like, let's not go over here.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate of like synthetic analogy is the difference between a beautiful organic creation, like a baking a cake that you baked yourself, versus, oh, let's just buy this cake mix and add eggs and suddenly we'll have
and water.
And water. It's like add light to the darkness and there'll be no more darkness. Come on. That's like the dumbest theory I've ever heard of. It's like, it just makes no sense to me. But anyway, so these two things are always happening. And I guess like the months and months of like highs that I generally go through, because I experience the other side of that. Like, I sometimes feel so high. I feel like I'm tripping off, magic mushrooms or whatever it is, like constantly, and reaching these incredible points of ecstasy and giggling laughter with people, like whoever I'm with. And I love life and I feel like I could jump out of my skin with excitement, and then, it goes back the other way. So often, like, I'm grabbing at all these things in my life, trying to realize why I'm in this darkness. And I get to this point of just surrender, and it hits me that there's something more going on. And there always is.
Always.
It's never just about what I think it is. Like, it's not like that this is not happening in my life, or that's not working out the way it is. It's always something much, much, much deeper. And on the weekend, I had this experience of, I guess it always leads to a journey. I generally take a journey. And often when I'm at this point of darkness, I'll find myself crying in the bath or something that I'm a combination of crying and using therapy at the same time. So in this case, I decided to pour a bath, magnesium salts. I'm just going to relax. And at the heightened point of this darkness, I was experiencing the journey beginning. And I never know where I'm going to go. And it's just like a journey in my mind's eye, but I feel it all in my body. It doesn't really exist up here. It's just like this, my body's going through time, space, locations, and my eyes are closed and I'm just experiencing it. So it became clear to me that I was a great being, like I was my own universe, and I was entering this universal expression of light. And I was going through all the different stages and dimensions, and every time I moved through another threshold, I knew less of who I was. My contact with my own greater self became less. I forgot more about who I was. I compressed and became more dense, and I felt more. I felt more what it was like to be human, to feel the pain and the horror, what it was like to exist in this universe that we're in this expression in a human body, on Mother Earth being. And it just kept getting the combination of losing connection, forgetting, but feeling more. It was scary. It was really, really scary, but also exciting and everything. And it was like I kept having to choose life over and over again. Do I really want to keep going? Do I really want to get denser and denser and denser and denser? And as I'm experiencing this, I'm having to keep re-choosing life. And I realized that what we go through as a human being on Earth, and how many times we actually have to consciously choose life. And I know many of you listening to this have had to do that over and over again, even if it's in your sleep. It's nothing compared to the birth canal. It's nothing compared to entering here to initially agree, because you literally, for me, I just had to choose. It felt like millions and millions of times I had to keep choosing. And the journey of that was really intense, because there were a lot of opportunities to be like, oh, actually, no. Yeah. So when I was like journeying through this experience and going into the, being what it was like to be born into the world, it was weird, because I was lying in the bath and someone that was very close to me was pretty much in labor at exactly the same time. So it was just kind of interesting how I was experiencing that. And it was like whatever was going on, it was like information was being fed to me around what this journey could potentially be like. And I have so much respect and love and compassion for every single being that chose to be here. Just no matter what their journey is, and no matter what they do to other people, it's
big.
It's big.
Yeah.
It's really big. And I guess I realized the agreements that we have just to be here and to fulfill our original intentions of why we came here are so important to be expressed, because you take such an epic journey and you sacrifice so much. You sacrifice getting home again. You may never, ever wake up and remember who you are. You sacrifice forgetting everything, because you forget everything. So the expression of that original intention and knowing who we are, remembering who we are, it's vital that happens at some point. And in this experience right now on Earth, as things are feeling more compressed and more chaotic, and there's extreme happiness and joy and extreme pain and sadness and extreme beauty, extreme horror all happening at once, it feels like more and more people are waking up in this lifetime and remembering. And this is actually the mass awakening that we're experiencing and have been for many years now, is that humans remember innately who they are, that they're all universes deciding to experience playing in the playground of the universe of light. Hey, let me play around in the universe of polar opposites in polarity and see what that's like. Let me forget who I am completely as a universal creator being, and come and play in your universe, and co-creating here with Mother Earth and Father Sun and all the other planetary beings, and everyone else here, we're all universes expressing ourselves, having this experience. And that awakening, that human spirit that lives within us, you just cannot squash it, which is why there are so many attempts and agendas to shut us down. But the secret is you can't. You just can't. Look at us.
Oh gosh, I'm so grateful. Actually, it may not have felt it for you at the time going through that journey, but I don't know if you noticed, I got pretty teary when you were sharing that journey, because I feel like what you just did was give me words for Azan's experience. Because I know, and I haven't really spoken about his birth before, not online. I know it's coming, but I know that a few days before he was born, he was very close to being a stillbirth. And I've not shared that with very many people, but I could feel his energy wanting to check out. And he was getting to that point where it was like, yeah, I don't want to come in here. Like, this is really dense. And you've also confirmed my experience of when I was connecting with him and going, like, I was just talking to his soul and, you know, just really affirming how loved he was and how much we wanted him and all of the things. But yeah, that's what he was telling me. That's what his soul was saying to me, is like, it's a really big deal for babies to say yes and come into Earth right now, because they're coming in at a time where, like you said, it's pretty challenging. And yeah, I know that he definitely was like, yeah, fuck this, I don't want to do this, for a little while there. And it really freaked me out. And it was actually you know, a girlfriend of mine came over and we ended up doing some kinesiology and clearing a whole heap of stuff and really connecting with him. And the reason I knew that he was checking out was because he was a really active baby, and I hadn't felt him all day, and I could just feel like something had shifted. And yeah, it was in that process of like, because I rang my friend who was also pregnant, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And she's like, I'm going over. And we did a balance, and it was literally in the middle of the balance. And this was like later in the afternoon, after, literally not feeling him since I'd woken, that he just started moving around in my belly, like mid balance. So it was like we were able to clear that and just, really allow him that space to come in. As you know, there's more to the birth story. I'm not going to go into that here, but his journey certainly didn't, of wanting to be here, so that certainly wasn't it. But yeah, I know how big it is for these babies coming in, and it has made me have such a huge appreciation as well for everyone who has actually got through that and said yes to being here, because it's full on. But like you said, this is the thing that I keep coming back to, despite all of the stuff that is going on around us right now, is that what is in here cannot be tampered with. Our minds can be controlled, yes, if we allow it. We can totally have our minds controlled, and there is absolutely things in the external world that can happen that will make us feel like we don't have control. But again, like, ultimately the human spirit, it can't ever be diminished as in like what we came here to be. Like, who we are cannot change. And like you said, we are universes. And I think that since coming into that knowledge, and another thing I heard George say recently that was so helpful for me in my journey, was that we have co-creative agreements to be here, and nothing, no thing can change that unless we're not meant to be here anymore. Like, the only way we're going to leave this earth is if we aren't meant to be here, no matter how hard things get or how challenging things get. So I think that allows you to go into that darkness a bit more and feel like you're okay
Yeah.
swimming in it a bit. It's just like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm actually safe in this, because I think we've been taught to fear that space, but it's just part of the polarizing experience that we've come here to experience.
Oh yeah. And that's something I'm so glad you brought that up, because I really feel it's important to share about the experiences of that deep darkness, that, you know, is medically labeled depression or a range of other things.
Bipolar
Bipolar, yeah.
yeah.
And it's just insane how little knowledge there is of that. And then people might even go, oh, it's back to trauma. And I'm going to go beyond that and say there is some ability that we have as humans. Some of us can feel into the depths of the darkness of what humanity are going through. And you listening to this, like overhearing this activating conversation, there's a really high chance that you have that ability to go there. And I know in myself, like I dig deep into the underworld. I will happily go and visit the darkness because it informs me of what I need to do. And the more that is like a source of my knowing and remembering who I am, and it's a source of my power.
Totally.
And I have to visit that place. I cannot pretend that doesn't exist or avoid it or raise my vibration into some other world when that's innately a part of who we are. It's our expression in this universe. And when it became clear to me that I'd been rejecting this most of my life, I mean, suddenly every sign became obvious to me. I have had extreme nightmares since I've been conscious of dreaming as a young girl. People tell me the darkest stories. You know, I come across the darkest information, but I turn it and alchemize it and use it to empower myself. And I'm really just someone who works well with the darkness. And if I look at dark and light energy, I seem to align with that organic dark energy more necessarily than the light energy. And I remember that I was at the airport and I was boarding a plane. I was basically coming back from being down south for a while. And it was one of those moments, it was like an outside plane where you're walking up the ladder and everything just turns into, like it's real. And like the way the captains looked at me when they walked past, I was just like, what is going on? Am I going to die? Why am I getting on this plane? And I felt my legs going up every step. And I'm like, I don't feel safe. Like there's death. And I immediately felt death all around me. And what I felt in that moment was this like stranglehold. And I've shared this on lives before and I've shared it with you, Carlee, but I just want to give people that like insight to where it switched for me. But I felt like this, like the darkness and the dark agendas had really gotten like a foothold on humanity. And it was like they just stepped up a few more rings of the ladder and tried to impose more on it. So there's a lot of force happening right now. And that's what I felt into, that humanity is waking up with such intensity and the agenda's like, fuck, we've got to keep up. We've got to keep up. So for the average human being who thinks that they're small and at the, you know, through new age programming and religion, you know, all the religions have said this, that we're at the bottom, we're this tiny little human being looking up, and we're the densest form. Yes, yeah. And our body, we're so dense, you know, and we're just little, but actually we're a fucking star. And we're actually just compressed fucking magic. But when we don't know ourselves as that, we feel small and these agendas feel relentless. So if you're feeling into all the fucked up shit that's happening out there in the world to humanity, it is a compliment to you and your power that is there in the first place, trying to control you. And you do not need to feel like we're failing or we're going to lose or this is this relentless and we'll never get out of it. They're going to fuck our health. They're going to do this, that. At the end of the day, it's just a reflection of your power. Remember, it's the universe. It's the opposite. So it's actually beautiful. So I felt that like that foothold and that force just come up a whole new level that wasn't what's like kind of like shook me, but it was the moment where I realized how many humans were not going to handle the energetic, unconscious knowing that the darkness had gained, like the synthetic dark had and synthetic light had gained another step up this ladder. And that the experience of being a human was going to become so much more intense that I felt into all the humans wanting to commit suicide. I felt into all the ones who were going to very soon, the ones that were like, okay, my co-creative agreement with Earth is done. I'm checking out. This is too much for me. Yeah. And I just, I guess I want everyone listening in to know that you're not alone if you're feeling like this is so intense. We are all feeling it. And the best thing that we can do is be honest about it and have open discussions about it and allow people to share from this experience, not shove it back down or tell them to think positive. Yeah. You know, it's not going to work. Like the reason I've survived is because after like 2 days after that, I reached out to friends who were there to nurture me through the experience, and they know to check on me. They know to check on me, and I know that they consciously check in on me, and I can tell when they are, as opposed to just disguising it off as an average phone call. I'm like, oh, yeah. And it's like it's having that the connection and the family and the support and the honesty, because if we don't look and visit this shadow, it's just going to eat away at us. But therein, the shadow lies our power, but we've got to be willing to go there first.
Yeah. Yeah, it is big, and that's the whole focus on the light in the new age. It can do just so much damage for people who are facing so much darkness and making themselves wrong for it. I think, like, I know someone, close to me who has also like had a lot of dark energy that they didn't know what to do with and have always made themselves wrong for it. And because that is the story, that it's bad, rather than just allowing it to be what it is. Yeah, I just feel like it's so important that humanity remembers who they are. And that the thing that keeps coming back to me over and over again is the majority have absolutely no fucking idea how powerful we are. And that is not coming from an ego space. It's just purely the fact of what we are and why there are so many dark agendas. Like, why does humanity need to be controlled? Like, if we're as lowly and dumbed down as they say we are, why do we need to be controlled? We wouldn't need to be. But it's been through my own personal experience, and I know for you, when you go from that place of complete amnesia, like I had no fucking idea who I was for most of my life, and not in the sense of like, who am I, like in a career sense or whatever it is. It's like, no, actually really fucking knowing the truth of who we are, and that is, we are literally another universe coming in to experience this universe. And that blew my freaking mind when I heard that. But it was an instant resonance of truth. And that information's only come to me this year. Like, this is not like I've been sitting with this for years and going, oh yeah, like this is just new information that as soon as I heard it has completely shifted everything for me. And that's, I too have done some Facebook lives around this of like awakening from the dream within the dream. It's like, once you actually know who you are, actually nothing can fuck with you, because you realize that your power is not outside of yourself. And no matter how deep into the dark we go or how far into the light, it's like you're saying, oh, you have like these experiences where you're so high. You have those experiences because you're able to go so deep into the dark. Like, the deeper you go on this side, the higher you're going to go on that side. you can't just go, oh, you know, I'm just only going to go to here on the dark, but I really want to reach up here in the light. And it doesn't work like that.
So true. Thanks for pointing that out, because that's exactly what I feel has allowed those incredibly high static feelings, is being willing to go to that level of darkness. It's what we're trained to believe about the darkness, or believe about that shadow aspect of ourselves, that makes us want to avoid it. But the most dangerous thing I feel for humanity is to be in that zone of numbness where they're not really experiencing either exactly. And all the medications and the training and the institutionalization and the just keeping people moderately happy.
If that,
it's in that band. And that is like and the comfort society that we're creating, like that's the other thing I notice so much now. Even just down to the room temperature is not right, let's fix it. Or let's make, you know, the car turn on the heat before we jump in, or everything. There's so much comfort that we don't have to do uncomfortable things anymore, that we don't necessarily have to challenge ourselves. But if we're sitting in comfort all the time, it eats away at us, because it's not a representation of the laws of nature or where we are. And I was having this chat, it was actually with my mum, like a few months ago. We were talking about what it feels like if, let's say, it's like a summer afternoon and you've kind of sat around all day in air conditioning and you've been comfortable, and then you go and you sit down and you open up like a cold drink and you put your feet up and you take a sip of that drink, compared to you've spent all day working your butt off in the garden, hands in the soil, your back kind of hurts, you've been in the sun, and you go have a shower, and then you sit down, and when you open that, it's like, that is the perfect example of like, it's bliss state. So like there's this level of discomfort and pain, and the world's just becoming too like cotton wool candy comfort and prissy, and everything's fucking precious now. And it's been replicated through political correctness and everything that we're doing. It's like, this is not humanity. The nature's like harsh and rewarding all at the same time, but technology is like, you know, zombification. That's like numbing us into the state of like, don't lift a finger, you know. And that is not our true nature. No.
And that's a whole other conversation, zombie conversation.
Fully.
We will go there.
We will. We absolutely will. Yeah. Maybe we can now. Like, it's not that hard to talk about it. Like for me, I have dreamt of years of zombie dreams, and years before I was kind of watching zombie type shows. So it was just kind of there. And over the years, I have fought every type of zombie, every breed possible, because of what my dream showed me what was possible. And there's definitely two strains of zombie type creatures, and one is like that viral strain that we always see in TV shows and movies, where it's like a virus outbreak and zombies are eating people and they kind of die and come back to life. And then there's the technological side, which I saw in my dreams, if not more. And it's through technology, the not having to really think for ourselves, and our brain kind of shutting down through entropy, like, and neuroplasticity. If you don't use it, those neural pathways, you lose it. And it's like, if you just think of like, how good are we at navigating now that we've had all of our, you know, Google Maps and things, and how good are we at just adding up and things like that now that we just have a calculator, and everything that we think that we have to work out ourselves is being replaced with technology. But what will happen is we will lose the ability to do it ourselves. And this is that numbing that occurs where we start to shut down. And that is a real thing. Like all these science fiction movies and TV shows and stories and cartoons have been telling us and warning us about this that is what zombification actually is. It's like the human being shutting down.
Yeah.
And that is an amazing way to control humanity.
So easy when people aren't thinking for themselves. And that's the thing, I think, is that, you know, people could watch what we say and be like, oh, you're just, you know, you're not wanting to evolve with humanity, like move with the times. You know, technology is a good thing. I've heard people say, I've watched debates, I guess, happen in Facebook comments when people post stuff about this, and it's like they're actually so disconnected from their own humanity that they think it's a step forward for robots, you know, for us to augment with robots, for technology, you know, to put chips in our body and things like this. Like, this is the way forward, you know, that we're literally moving into this science fiction type reality. And there is just not one cell in my body that believes that to be true. I'm like, fuck no, you know, like that is not what I signed up for. You know, I did not sign up to be a robot. It's like the ascension thing. I keep thinking, you know, like if we wanted to be whatever it is, I don't even know really. When I think about it, I'm like, what is this crystalline being or whatever that, you know, that gets spoken about in these, I don't know, like you turn into whatever. What do we turn into in the New Age movement? It always confused me. But it's like, if we wanted to experience being an alien, let's just say, like into that reality, then why come to Earth to do that? Like there's so many other places we could have these experiences. Like, I think you come to Earth to experience being a human, and yet humans do everything we possibly can to avoid experiencing being a human. And I will totally put my hand up. I spent like years trying to avoid being a human, and that's what the New Age does. It's like, takes you out of it. Does. It's like, fuck that shit. Like, you don't want to be a human. Come over here and be like this being of light. We'll go fucking into another universe and be this being, you know, like it's not
or access the part of you that already is. You can at any moment.
Exactly.
Because you've come through, you're projected into this experience. You're already existing on every single dimension there is already right now. So just access the part you want to access. But you absolutely nailed it. It's like humans will do everything they can to avoid being human. Once they get here, it's like, oh, I'll be an ascended being and I'll go live in the 5D, or oh no, I'll just go down in the technological path and be a robot.
Yeah.
And so many humans don't know that they're unconsciously making these choices. It's like the whole kind of like, if you're watching it happen and you're not saying anything, you don't realize that it's actually happening to you. Yeah. We're right now, in terms of technology, we are frogs in water heating up. And it'll get to a point where it becomes so hot that it'll be too late and we won't be able to get out. Yeah. Boiled, dead. Yeah. That's exactly what we're facing. Yeah. And yeah, it's so true. But the thing is, humanity, this it's pretty big kind of like conversation to bring into this now. But I love listening to what George Kavassis was saying about the beings of technology. And this was so true to me. And when I heard this, it's like I just knew it in my body and it felt so right. And that was that technology is not new. It's like it's an old
energy.
It's like it's epochs old. And it's being presented and coming through the human experience into the planetary body of Earth through our systems that we're developing. But it's an entity. It's fucking aware. This is not something, it's not artificial. No. We're not in control of it. It is actually finding its way to infiltrate into our planet. We're allowing this massive technological imposition and takeover, and it's in all levels of institutions and governments and coming through. And it's totally impacting us. And we're having this experience of going down these different paths. And you know, the New Age is like, oh, we're going to ascend. And then everyone else is like going down that path of that zombification or that becoming a robot. This is actually all happening, and humanity has no idea that they're unconsciously choosing it by not opting out of the experience. So it's like, and basically what I wanted to share about this is why I'm bringing it up now, is that humanity is not being presented with the choices of technologies that are out there. Like, we're not saying, I know Carlee agrees with this because she said this before publicly, we're not saying technology is bad. It's just that what humanity is being presented with is malevolent technology.
Exactly.
We're not actually accessing benevolent forms. We're not actually given the opportunity to access lots of benevolent forms. Like, if you think of all the technologies that can clean up our planet and support humanity, they're all shut down. They're never allowed to be expressed. So we're being fed this lie that technology is good, and it's like, yeah, of course it's good, but the shit you're showing us, 99% of it is actually controlling us, and it's malevolent, and it's taking over our humanity, and you're allowing this imposition to happen.
Totally. I was having this conversation with some friends and around, kids and screen time and the whole debate around that, and it's something that I have been so challenged with myself as a mum, but there's literally a way where the waves across the screen, if they go one way, it's addictive in the games, and if they go the other way, it's not. And of course, all of the games that are created is using this waveform or whatever it is that creates addiction and creates the dopamine hits and all of that. So whilst I do believe that there is a place, and I've shared this with you before, I know with these kids that are coming in, I do believe they hold the codes for the benevolent technology. I think they know what it is, and they need access to the malevolent because it's like a training ground for them. Like, they need to have it because, like you said, if you're not using it, you lose it. But it has to be like really carefully monitored because too much and it can, swing the other way. So it's a really challenging time, I think, because they innately want it because they know that, there is that they need technology. It was interesting when you're talking about the zombie stuff before. One of my boys, I remember when we were driving up from Alice Springs to Darwin, him and his mate, like, they were coming out with every possible scenario of like, what would you do if zombies attacked? And they were choosing their cars and what we would do. And like, it was this whole story that was going on every day for like in the end, like all the parents were just like, okay, enough. But it's like, it's really interesting that they were tapping into this, and they also, I'm like, they're really into their games, and I know that on some level they are learning what they need to learn through those games. And yeah, it is. It's just really trying to find, especially once they hit teens, where you can't stop it so easily. It's really about finding that balance. But I agree, there is absolutely benevolent technology, and I do think that we will eventually get to access it, but it's not the technology like people think. That's the thing. It's not what we are having access to now. You've only got to see when a new iPod or iPad or whatever it is gets released, and there's like thousands of people lining up at stores for it. I'm just like, that's freaking insane. But that is an addiction. That's like not only an addiction to technology, but an addiction to consumerism and having the best, because it's always like, so like, you've got to have the best and you've got to have the latest and greatest. And that whole keeping up with the Joneses mentality, like I would quite gladly have an iPhone 3 still. Like, I don't care. I was like, really, I've got to get an iPhone 8. They're like, I said, why can't I just have that one? And like, we don't do those on plans anymore. I was like, oh God, I just want a phone and that I can do my stuff on, and that's it. But yeah, there's definitely it's the programming that it's another agenda to just keeping people distracted with all of this stuff. So
yeah, and it's like all these technologies are presented to us, but they're not safe, and like the illusion is that they are safe, obviously, so people just don't monitor screen time, or they sit at a job for 8 hours a day and stare at stuff and then use their phone and they don't think anything of it. But they can be made safe. Doesn't that feel right to you to hear that? Like, of course, why would they be so unhealthy for us? They can be made safe. Like the technology that we actually can have access to, why would these things be killing us? it's like everything that gets presented to humanity through these agendas are based off something good, but it's massively hijacked. Oh, let's put the blue light reflection thing. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's make 5G working this way, like the waveforms going through the biological body. It's like, you don't have to do that.
Do it that way.
But no. It's like, well, the technology is the Trojan horse into something bigger that's going on. So that's when you want to like question the whole thing, and then everything. And then it's question like, what do you do about all these impositions? And remembering your true nature is so fucking easy.
That's all it is.
It's like you can go spend 3 hours of a weekend forest bathing, and you can take your shoes off, put your feet in the soil, get your bacteria of you talking to the bacteria of the earth, and put your hands on the trees, which is the World Wide Web, actually, the tree system, the Wood Wide Web. It's all interconnected. The trees are like the opposite of humans. It's like we breathe the opposite thing and breathe out the opposite thing, and we're animated, they're not. We're kind of new, they're old. Like, it's like this is how you remember your true nature, is just go back to the organic life. And when you go in it, it'll solve all of your problems. It'll help you see through whatever you need to do. It'll help you get connected to your intuition. Everything that you see is reflecting back your environment and your experiences. You can get sign after sign after sign.
Totally.
And it's so simple, like whether it's like a forest or a beach, or it's just like playing music, sitting around telling stories and watching a fire. All you've got to do is go back to being a human, and that whole imposition just starts to not have that stronghold on you, and it starts to dissolve, and it doesn't have the power that it has around you, because nothing beats that organic experience of being a human.
Totally. Yeah.
So easy.
It is. And I was listening to someone talk about this the other day, and they were just saying like the whole like keeping people busy, the 9 to 5, which is not even 9 to 5. Like many are doing, 60, 80 hours a week. And it's literally like our lives have been created to be so fast that we don't have time. And I don't say we, because, like my life's not that fast. Like I can get out in nature, but there's so many that don't get out in nature because it's like by the time the weekend comes around, they're absolutely buggered and just can't be bothered, leaving their house. So yeah, it's just so important to get out in nature. Like that is the absolute number one reset. And nothing can beat it. Like that's another thing that, I guess it can be, the energy can be messed with to a degree, with towers around and things like that. But ultimately we live in a country, we're really lucky in Australia that there's a lot of places. You don't have to travel too far to get into nature and away from cities and built up areas. It's probably not quite so easy in other places where it's not so open, but I still think there's always something. There's going to be a tree somewhere. There's a bit of grass, or just get out under the sun, Another, just been so programmed to believe the sun is bad, and it's not. It's like our life force. So yeah, just getting out, and it's the ultimate reset. And I think we would see a massive shift in mental health issues if people were spending a lot more time in nature.
100%. Yeah, so agree with that. And like what you're sharing just before, it's like that whole system is designed to exhaust people, so they don't, and other things become priorities, and there is just massive distraction in keeping people busy. But if you go kind of like, well, let's fuck all that off, and I'm going to give myself time to be a human, you'd be surprised how much better you start to feel, what information flows through. Yeah. And
what you can let go of, because it's like the weekends. I was having this conversation with a lady the other day, and around just like the weekends are just spent doing all the stuff around the house. Like when people who work 9 to 5s all week, they're like, the weekends, that's what it's like, oh yeah, I've got to mow the lawns, I've got to clean, and I've got to get all the kids' food ready for the week. And I was just thinking, fuck that. I couldn't deal with that. But yeah, it is the reality for so many.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for going on that journey. I just think that was such a powerful experience that I think many can relate to, especially many who are feeling like they don't want to be on Earth. I know that I've certainly had those moments, but I know some people who've like it's been extreme for them, like really extreme. And I think the only way to get out of that is to remember why you're here. Like you came here for a reason, you know, you didn't come here to not want to be here the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's it. It's like getting connected back into the intention, but it's always like it's that initial thing of we're trained to make it wrong, like it's a bad thing. And when I stop making these experiences wrong and I listen, the darkness is trying to tell me something every time. And it allows me to go on these journeys, and these experiences always come through when I'm not making it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The walls aren't up.
That's it.
You're open.